Hi, everybody. Ann McClure here. I'm a residential realtor with McInerney Associates here in the DC metro region, and I'm licensed and work by referral in Montgomery County, Maryland, and some surrounding areas, and also in close in Northern Virginia. And we've got partners across the river in DC. And you are here for the latest episode of Ask the Expert, which is a little bit different this week because we got some requests to flip how we do Ask the Expert. Normally, I ask the experts questions, but this time we've got a little conflict tomorrow, and we thought what a perfect time to follow up on some requests we've had for me to be the expert. So I'm going to be the expert, and we brought in our guest and friend, Colin May, who is going to ask the questions. Colin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. It is an honor to fill in as the interviewer for you.
Well, I hear you're a tough interviewer, so go easy on me, okay?
A lot of hardball questions.
It's a tough enough market out there. So anyway, all right, I'm ready, Colin. I've been practicing. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to share a little bit about Colin in a second, but this is, again, Ask the Expert. Ask the Expert's a forum for sharing information about local businesses that provide house or home related services. And we do an Ask the Expert every couple times a month. I was gonna say every couple of weeks, depends on the month. We'll do it twice a month. And it's a great opportunity, a great forum for getting questions answered for people. We'll bring in a roofer or HVAC or a professional organizer and ask questions that are house and home related. So thank you so much for joining us for the latest episode. We will have this available later on YouTube and on my website. We can make it available by email. And of course, Colin will have it available also. So I'm going to give a really quick market update, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about Colin May, our guest and interviewer today. The market is still really fast. The average time that a property in the DC metro region is spending on the market is 17 and a half days. And that speaks, of course, to inventory. We have an inventory shortage, so it is a red hot time to sell a property. But this is not expected to last. All of the forecasts are that it will moderate in the second half of the year. So if you know somebody, whether you're in the DC metro region or anywhere else in the country, even Canada, I hear is the same, tell your friends and family and colleagues now is the time to sell if they've been thinking about it. We all feel really strongly that there will be a little bit of a shift, still a seller's market, but right now sellers are pretty much getting the sun, the moon, and the stars. So still very brisk here. And if you have any questions about the local market, happy to help. And if you need a referral to realtors in other parts of the country, I know some good ones. I was at a conference last week powwowing with people from all over. So, all right, I'm going to share a little bit about Colin. Colin May and his wife, Beth, are clients of mine. So I will disclose that now, but Colin is also a very serious local business man. And he works for KME.Digital. He is the chief strategy officer for the company. And he's done a lot to help the company grow. I want to share a little bit about KME.Digital because while it's not a house or home related business, they do help home related services and lots of other companies. And if what he does might help you, we wanted to make sure you have his information. So KME.Digital is a local digital marketing agency here in the DMV. They help B2C, B2B, and B2G companies with online marketing and lead generation efforts. A few of their services include SEO, paid advertising, social media management, sales and marketing, automation, and email marketing. So you can follow up with them on social media for industry updates. And if you know anybody who is hoping to revamp their digital marketing programs, please give KME and specifically Colin May a call. We're going to share his information at the end. But Colin, I know what you've done. I know how much you've grown the company, and I know several of your clients because we share clients, even though we're in totally different industries. And I know how highly they speak of you, not just you as a person and how you've helped them in the business, but also their return on investment because they've gotten phenomenal results. So I want to say I think you're such a fun-loving, fun person, but a very serious business person. I really appreciate the results you've gotten for people. It's very impressive.
Well, thank you so much for that intro, Ann. And it means a lot coming from you because, if you're going to make a referral or a testimonial for somebody, you really mean it. Otherwise, you're not going to say it. So thank you.
I do. Well, you're welcome. And I'm so glad you're interviewing me today. I'm ready for the hardball questions.
Okay. All right. Question one. So this is related to buyers. And since this is about expectations in real estate, I was wondering if you could tell us more about what we can expect an agent to talk about when meeting for the first time.
Yes. So first of all, I think a first meeting is really important. I sometimes am referred people who met a realtor at a property the first time. I won't name any company names, but you call a number and they meet you at a property and you get no framework. And let's face it, you're spending $500,000 or more, a lot more sometimes. And when are you going to spend that kind of money and make payments for 30 years? So the first thing I think should happen is a meeting. And I think that a realtor, we do have legal obligations that states and jurisdictions put on us to go over certain information. Lead-based paint is federal, fair housing is federal. And then there are things like Montgomery County, for instance, has laws that pertain to radon, and Maryland has smoke detectors, and Virginia has disclosure laws, as does Maryland. So DC has some also. So the realtor needs to make the prospective buyer aware of those requirements, but also just as important in my mind is the process. Going over the process, helping set expectations, answering questions, going over market conditions. Sometimes I meet with buyers who say, oh, my parents told me never pay full price. And I always think, okay, well, we may have to wait a decade because you might want to keep renting because you're right. You're not going to pay full price. You're going to pay a lot more in this market. So it's about setting expectations. And really, I want to answer questions too. People come in with a lot of questions and I have a lot of respect for that. And I tell people I'm not going to limit the time we meet because I want to answer all your questions. And I think a good realtor should do that for you.
Yeah. Well, I know we spent a number of hours with you during our first time homebuyer meeting. And then, the communication that we had back and forth throughout the process and was so appreciated because we were, very new, to the home buying process, but you made it easy. So, I really appreciated that experience with you.
It's intimidating, right? It's like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah. And the information, knowledge is power, right? And I think you provided us a lot of really great information going into the purchase of our home. So, but on the other side of the coin, what are you expecting from buyers before you start showing them homes?
Well, I guess before I start showing them homes, I really want them to be interested in meeting with me. I remember one time I had this young couple and they asked me, oh, can we do the meeting remotely? Which we all Zoom these days. We're Zooming now. But she said she wanted to work out and he needed to do grocery shopping and they wanted to do that while we met. And I said, you know what? I don't think that's going to work as well as if we try to have a nicely consolidated meeting. So I would say I'd like a level of seriousness. I want them to be tuned in and plugged in. I think that's really important. And I want them to give thought to who they want representing them, both as a realtor and a lender. Sometimes we have people who interview a few realtors, which is totally fine. That's your right as a consumer. And I think you're a smart consumer. They interview a few lenders. And then sometimes they won't commit to one. But the way we get the most success for a buyer is when you have a cohesive team. So you've got a great lender dedicated to you. You've got a great realtor and they make a team and they're communicating back and forth all the time behind the scenes. And so you want that really strong foundation under you when you're buying, especially in a market like this. So I would also say that I expect open communication. What do you like and not like about the homes? If there's something you want to see, give me a little bit of a heads up so we can get it on the schedule. And tell me what you like and don't like, because I'll start to get a sense of what properties will work for you. I remember with you guys, I drove by a property one day and thought, why hasn't anything come on in there? Because that would be a great community. And sure enough, one came on and that's where you landed. So you sort of get a sense,
Yep, absolutely. So it sounds like, set your team, open up the lines of communication, and the rest kind of falls into place, more or less.
True, because early on in my career, somebody said to me, the momentum will carry you to a degree. And it's true. You start going and that starts to create forward motion for sure.
Awesome. Now, as you're touring these homes, what can a buyer expect in terms of your opinions on the property? I know you provide us with a lot of great information. You were very transparent. Some of your thoughts on the properties that we were looking at. But generally speaking, I mean, how do you typically go about that process?
Well, I like to, literally from opening, not even opening the door, from right when we pull up. I mean, I will be fiddling with the key, looking up like this to see, is it caulked well around the door frame? Do I see any wood rot? How has the property been maintained? It's like that beautiful package. If it's like shabbily put together with wrapping paper and an askew bow and ugly, tape and corners and so, oh, is this what it's going to be like inside, or is it just a bad wrapping job, And so right from the get-go, I have my eyes open and I do point things out. I think it's really important. I will point out if I see water stains on baseboards. I will point out if I see shoddy workmanship. If I see, older appliances or water stains on the ceiling, and I don't catch it all, but at this point, I'm a pretty experienced realtor, and I believe a realtor you're working with should be able to point things out. If you cower from the problems, are you really representing your buyer? I don't think you are. Not to say I'll be realistic with a buyer and say, hey, if you put a lot of contingencies in this market, you probably won't get your contract accepted. Because that's just the market we're in. But it doesn't mean I don't think you should do inspections. And it doesn't mean I don't think you should look closely. I will point out the deficiencies because I think it's important. Because you're going to be living there and it should be safe and it should be harmonious. I had a young couple who I remember looking at the parking situation, and a woman came out and yelled at people about where they were parking. And I looked around at trash and I thought, I don't think this is well managed, this townhouse community. And sure enough, it turned out later it was not. So all of these things I try to point out and sort of keep my eyes and ears open on behalf of my client.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned inspections, and does your communication on, I guess, the opinions on the property change all during the inspection, or how do you go about that?
Do you mean like if I notice something and it turns out not to be a big deal, or vice versa?
Well, do you come with like a punch list of items that you want the home inspector to take a look at, or how do you typically go about that?
I do. Yeah. Sometimes I say, I had one recently and I said, this buyer is very nervous about mold and mildew. She's got a high allergy, low tolerance and high allergy response to it. And, she'll probably have a sense in a house, but it wouldn't have gotten to the point where we were writing a contract if it was super high. So I called the inspector ahead of time. I said, would you, pay particular attention to this? Or sometimes we'll see what we think looks like, it looks kind of like rot sometimes, and you're not sure, is it termite, some kind of wood destroying insect damage or something else. So I like to point those things out. And I think the inspectors appreciate it. I think a good inspector also doesn't shy away from things but doesn't blow things up either. As I like to say to clients, is it a problem curable? We can't cure a bad location. We can't cure backing to 66 or 495, but we can cure wallpaper, despite what, we see on Chip and Joanna, and not everything has to be rage, right? So, we can cure ugly things about a house. And same thing with home inspection. A lot of things are curable. It's just sort of what price are we looking at? And I have a pretty good sense of that too. And thanks to, Ask the Expert, we've got such a cadre of great experts that, I can call on and say, can you come take a look at this deck with us? Or, hey, here's the size of the roof. Here are some photos. If we needed a full roof replacement, what do you think this would run? Give us a range. So absolutely, Colin, to answer your question, I think it's very important. Again, it goes back to the buyer education. You may have to pay more than asking, but let's go in informed about what might come next.
Yeah, absolutely. So you gave us a quick update on the market before we started this segment. Can you tell us more about the market for buyers and what they can expect in the DC region when making an offer?
Yes, and this is actually a really good segue, because something I probably should have mentioned in the last question about inspections is right now, almost every offer I write, people are waiving financing, appraisal, and home inspections. So as far as writing a contract, Colin, usually they're going in, I think every offer I've written this year, we've gone in at least 10,000 over asking. And of course, I'm writing offers in the 300s and 2 millions. So when you're higher, it's, you're going in even more above asking, and then escalating from there. Unless the listing agent calls for best and final, which is just where you go in with your best offer from the get-go, you don't escalate. Escalating means if you go in oversimplifying $500,000 asking, you'll go in at 520. Maybe you escalate in units of 4,500 over the next highest offer up to a certain cap. I always tell my buyers, don't end on a round number. Let's not end at 550. Let's end at 554.5 or something like that, because then you can break a tie. But yes, we're seeing way over asking, lots of escalations, no financing, no appraisal contingency, and usually no home inspection. And the way we handle that, because I am a big advocate for being an informed consumer, is you work very closely with your lender to figure out how can you buy the property. If you were going to do 20% down and it doesn't appraise, do you do less money down so that you're doing 10% down and you can bring more money to the table in the event of a low appraisal, which is happening sometimes, not as often as you think in this market. And home inspection. Let's have a pre-inspection. Let's go out and see properties Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so we can fit a pre-inspection in before offers are due Sunday night, Monday, or Tuesday. And then you can go in as an informed consumer. And you can go in without the home inspection contingency because you know everything you need to know about the property. I mean, that you can see. We can't open walls. We can't pull up flooring, but as much as you can see and learn on an inspection. So that's really what we're seeing, Colin. It's tough. It's tough. But when there's a shortage like this, buyers go to extreme measures, and many of them are just very happy to get in. And then next month, a listing like theirs comes on 20, 30, 40,000 higher than what they bought it for.
Yeah.
Did that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it reinforces the advice that you gave on the first question of or I guess it was the second question on what you expect from buyers, right? And having the right team, I think, is going to give you the right information going into that process, because it's a highly competitive market right now. And nobody wants to feel like they're taken advantage of, but there are certain concessions obviously that you have to make.
I'm really blown away by how willing buyers have been to take my advice. And sometimes my advice is, I wouldn't go that high for this house, because don't forget, you're going to need a new roof and a new this and a new that. Like, I know you've heard me say that. Like,
that's exactly what I was laughing. I mean, I heard those exact words.
Yeah. Like, there are just some houses that it's like, I just feel like it's one thing if you can get it for a certain price and then put some money in, but if it goes, sky's the limit, and then you have to put tens of thousands in. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, switching gears into the seller side. So what should a seller expect from an agent, in that first meeting that they have with you?
Well, it's funny. I hear things from sellers about their meetings with other realtors. And it's always interesting to me when they say things like, well, I've interviewed 3 and that person told me you have to paint our yellow house gray and we're not doing it. Or that person came right in and said, we could only get 700,000 and we know we should get 825. Well, I like to start with a tour of the home, because I don't think there's a blanket statement for anything. In other words, it's very hard to come in with a price if you haven't seen the house. I mean, what if they have a brand new furnace and air conditioner? What if they bought top of the line windows? What if they remodeled the primary bathroom? There are things like this that impact the price. So I think a realtor should come armed with sales data, but I think they also need to come armed with an open mind and tour the property and then go back and fine tune pricing, because that allows you to take into account things that the seller may have done or benefits they may have. Maybe everybody in the neighborhood has half basements, but there are 3 houses that were built with full basements. I remember a split level we had that there were literally only 3 in the neighborhood that had an additional level. And this listing was one of them. And all the comps were coming up wrong because the data in the tax records was wrong. So you got to go in and do your research, but you also have to go in with an open mind. And then I think you go back and massage the data and fine tune it. So I think a seller should expect a realtor to come prepared, But it's very hard when a seller tries to nail you down on an exact price, because I would be shooting from the hip if I didn't go back and do my research. So yeah, as far as the expectations, I think too, the seller needs to understand that the realtor, to really do a good informed pricing analysis for them, needs to see the house and then do a little bit more due diligence. I also think that a seller should be prepared to give the realtor any updates and improvements they've done and any concerns about the property. You know, hey, Ann, every time we get a hard driving rain from the west, this area leaks, or you know, how should we handle this? So there are concerns that can impact how you market the property, even depending on what it is, how you might price the property. Sometimes you can price to overcome a problem and end out at a fantastic price just because you've strategized, to use something you do in your business. You've strategized ahead of time and figured out a way to overcome a problem. I had a listing once in Montgomery County, and I was the second realtor, and the first realtor had tried to sell it twice. So I was the third attempt. And I remember this house, it was an end unit townhouse, and it had weeping mortar. Do you know what that is?
No idea.
So picture 2 layers of a cake. You put the frosting on, you put the top layer on, and all the frosting oozes out. But instead of coming in with that bricklaying tool and tidying it up, you just let the frosting ooze out. And then you leave it that way for decades. So it's very messy looking. And I remember I showed townhouses in McLean, Virginia, that had weeping mortar. And my client said, I can never live here. I'll feel like I'm on an acid trip all the time. So I'm going to rule that community out. This is part of going back to, like, you learn what's important to your clients. But this house, I kept hearing his voice in my head about an acid trip. And I was thinking, this townhouse is stigmatized. It's a lovely townhouse. They renovated the kitchen. They'd done new flooring. They had painted. They had done a new primary bathroom. It was an end unit back to common area. But all people saw, oh, and it had a roof line that people didn't like, one of those mansard roof. And that only a few in the neighborhood had that. So people pull up and they're like, ew, right? I mean, a lot of people said this is so aesthetically ugly from the outside. So I thought, you know what, we got to tell the tale from the inside. So we did the photos from the inside of the property. We talked about all the updates and improvements up front, and I raised the price from where it had been. And my clients thought it was crazy. But I said, it has to look different. It has to be priced different. It has to be marketed differently. And we did it. And they had, I don't remember, 8 or 9 offers, and it, you know, went way over ask. Yeah. So that's where information from the seller is critical to helping in the process. I think I might have gone a little off topic there, but it was sort of.
It was good. I enjoyed hearing about the melting walls.
Yes. Yes. Weeping mortar. Weeping mortar can be a challenge.
So, you know,
said, when I say, what's important to you in a house? And they say, I've got to find one with weeping mortar.
Who knows? It might come into vogue. You never know.
Never. Yeah. Trends change. That's for sure.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's a few things to take care of, you know, when you're prepping your home for sale. I mean, what would you say is the average timeline, you know, that a seller should use, you know, to prepare their home for sale? And I'm sure it's different by property. But what would you say the general timeline is there?
Yeah, it's different by property. It's different depending on how long they've been in the property. You know, somebody who's raised their kids 30 years in and is selling for the first time, you know, in decades, it might take them a lot longer. I'd say in this market, where you have a very hard time getting contractors because they're having a hard time with their labor force and supply, I would say give yourself longer than the average person does. I would bet you, Colin, average is 2 to 3 months. I would recommend people give it 6 months. And I'm going to say something here that I always beg people who I meet who are thinking of selling, but we don't have a time frame yet. I tell them, if you want to go on the market in the next few months and you're not sure, you're looking at the next year, let's go on January, February, but let's take photos while the outside looks like perfection. We'll get the outside looking great. We'll do exterior photos. We can do dusk photos with your patio table set and, little fairy lights around and really set a stage. And then let's come back on when there's record low inventory right after the holidays and do the interior pictures. And that gives them many months to plan. And then we'll put it on the market, and probably very few other homes will be on the market, and you'll get, record high for the neighborhood. So that's what's ideal. But I think the average, to answer your question, is probably 2 to 3 months. I think what I'd love to see is, 6 to 9, which sounds so long. I don't know if I could do that myself, but that's what I'd recommend.
Yeah, in a perfect world, right? If you could wave a magic wand, 6 to 9 months.
And really, real estate is an imperfect world. So
Right.
I'm being realistic.
So it sounds like the timeline for prep has changed for sellers. Has anything else in that selling process changed?
Okay, yes, I'm going to get really serious. Sellers out there, I want you to hear me. I have had so many sellers say, and I don't even have to do anything. My house is going to sell. There's nothing has to be done. Why do I even need you? You know what? Here's the truth. You don't need me. Your house is going to sell. It's going to sell just fine. You just stick a paper sign in the yard. I mean, it'll sell in this market. Even somebody says, a real estate trainer I love says, even a turkey can fly in a hurricane. It'll sell. But you know what? Why not put a little effort in? Why not hire a professional? And why not do a little strategy? Again, borrowing your what you do for a living, Colin. And you know what? Spend $10,000 and make 40 or 50. Spend $10,000 and get a free rent back so you don't have to move twice. Spend $10,000 and have your buyers waive home inspection, waive financing and appraisal. That's what it's about. When you hire a professional, they help you not only get the best price, get the best terms, negotiate so that you are not just selling in this market. Yes, anybody can sell. You are sitting pretty. You're not having to move twice. You're not paying an extra $5,000 for that. You're not storing items for months on end. This is all part of a strategy. And I think a real pro can help you with all of that. And a pet peeve I have is there are plenty of realtors in this market who they want listings so badly that they'll say, oh yeah, we can sell your house tens of thousands over, whatever. But they don't talk to their clients about the next phase. Well, when you're a seller in this market, and let's say you're selling a townhouse, you got to move up, family's expanding, you want to buy a house, buying is hard. So I think a good realtor needs to talk to you about the whole process, not half. I've picked up clients just because the realtor didn't talk about the other half. So that's what I'm hearing from sellers. Like, this is a great time to sell. Absolutely is. But there's more to it than that. Did that passionately answer the question?
It did. Yes, wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, there needs to be a timeline established to prepare the home for sale, asking the question, are we buying something after we sell this? And if so, where? But what are some of the other expectations that an agent has for a seller, specifically in this market, when going through this process?
I guess, I look at it like I'm the ringleader, of the circus, but I do want them to be an active participant. Every now and then I have a seller who's kind of like, they want to turn over all the reins. And, again, it is a team effort. I need you to think about your landscaping. All these years you've taken care of mowing the lawn. Don't let it go now, because you're moving, and it's kind of like, oh, I thought you had somebody who mowed the lawn, or, these little details that can sometimes go awry are things that, I would ask a seller to see themselves as part of the team. Yes, you're hiring a realtor, but it is a team effort, a collaborative effort. And I need input from the sellers. I need to know what concerns they have. And if something goes sideways, if you're quiet about something that's worrying you, I can't help you, because if I don't know, I can't help. So, sellers have the upper hand in this market, but it doesn't mean that things don't go sideways. Right now we have a 10% contract fallout rate. And people are walking away from very large earnest money deposit checks because the market's so fast, the emotions are running so high. And so you can imagine a seller, you think you're sitting pretty, and then the contract falls apart. And okay, you got, 20,000 earnest money, but you're back on the market and you're frustrated and you're stressed out, So again, it's kind of like the answer with the buyers. We have to keep the lines of communication open, and definitely tell me if you have concerns. Tell any realtor. I don't mean to just make this me. Any professional you hire is going to want open communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did that help?
It did. Yeah, for sure. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to go into some questions related to professional advice. But before we do that, any other notes that you wanted to make on the buyer or seller side?
Yes. For the buyer, I want to remind the buyer that you live in the payment, not the purchase price. This is where having a great lender is very, very important, because sometimes buyers get very hung up and they say, that thing's listed at 500. I'm not going to pay 525. And then they go up to 520 and they found out somebody got it for 522. And they're like, Ann, that only changed my payment $7,000 a month. I totally would have done that. This is, again, where you want a really good team and you want to communicate. So remember, don't get hung up on the price. Talk to a really good lender and figure out how much you're comfortable paying each month. Look at what's happening in your life with your expenses and your career advancement and so on. And think about the payment over the price, because going up $10,000 in 5 years isn't going to make a hill of beans of difference. When you look and you see your kids playing in the yard and you're outside and you're drinking your mojito with your spouse or partner, and you have your parents over, your best friends, and you're just sitting there happy and so happy you got that house, that $10,000 isn't going to mean a thing. You'd probably pay it 3 times over, So remember, you live in the payment, not the price.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote that down. You live in the payment, not the purchase price.
Exactly.
Really well said.
Thank you.
All right, you ready for some hardball professional related questions? How you got started?
Kind of scared,
Yeah?
especially this is coming from the guy with the Parks and Rec portrait in the background.
Yeah, let me put my Ron Swanson mustache on, and we'll dive right into these questions here.
I'm ready.
So what led you to your real estate career, Ann?
Sorry that just happened.
Did I scare you that much? Was that scary?
You know what led me to it, Colin, is, and if you'd asked me many years ago, would I ever have a career in real estate, I would have said no. But I always liked marketing, and I met a really wonderful person who owned a real estate company named David Howell. He's one of the partners here at McInerney, and he's our EVP. And we just had a great conversation about marketing and digital photography. And this was in 1994. Nobody was talking about digital photography back then. And I was just so intrigued that I wanted to join him and his company, and I did marketing for him for a while. And then I eventually started doing recruiting for the company because I believed so much in this company. And I was interviewing some of the best realtors in the DC metro region, smart realtors, really passionate and committed to helping their clients. I mean, there's something beautiful when you can help an immigrant who came here for a better life, who never thought they'd own anything. And now they own a house where they can raise their children and they can pass on a legacy, and they change their whole financial picture. And then this happened to me, that one of the kids calls and says, Ann, are you available on this date? And you say, well, yes, what's going on? Many months out, right? Well, you helped us realize our first American dream, and we want you to help us realize the second one. I'm graduating from college. I mean, like, you couldn't turn off the waterworks. It was like, I didn't get into real estate knowing it was going to be this gratifying sometimes. And yes, it's hard. It's really hard. People who get into it are like, oh, I'm in it because I like people. We have a joke, like, be in real estate for a few months, you're going to hate them. But that's not really true, because, you have these experiences like the one I just described that are just incredible. So I got in. I think I was motivated by watching some of the best and brightest in the metro region who I felt like did real estate for the right reasons and really helped people at the core. It wasn't all about me, the screaming memes. It was really about the client, helping them achieve something important and meaningful. And that's really what got me in. I mean, I just watched these realtors who I admired, and I was motivated to do the same, I guess. So sounds kind of corny, doesn't it?
It sounds awesome. It's like a series of George Bailey moments, Yeah, like It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's great. So what advice would you give to somebody who's entering into the real estate field?
I'd say button down the hatches. It's gonna be a wild ride. But if you can make it in this market, you can make it in any market. I would say work very hard. I would say always keep your ethics first and foremost. And keep the idea of the people, that people are at the heart of it. I have these photos on my wall. I'm angling it. You could kind of see them there. Those were my first sets of clients. And I wanted to remember that at the heart of every transaction is a person. It's easy to get wrapped up in the dollars, but they're people you're helping. And that was really important to me. And I've met fantastic people in this job. So I would say, yes, work hard and be ready for a wild ride. I would say, try to set some boundaries so you don't go cuckoo. Keep business ethics and personal ethics, at front and center. And lean into relationships. I'm all about local business. I believe in local business. I'm part of a local networking group, as are you. And, but a lot of times when our economy suffers, it's on the backs of small business that we come out of a recession. And, that's important to know. And realtors are small business. I'm an independent contractor. I work under a company, but I'm an independent contractor for McInerney Associates. And I think what we do is very important. And I would ask realtors to keep a level of professionalism. The other thing that drives me crazy is don't show up to showings in your swim trunks and your flip-flops. This is a profession. We're supposed to be professional. That's why the word profession is in professional. It's supposed to be about the business and presenting yourself a certain way. And, let's bring it back to that. I think it's so what we do is important. It's so important. So anyway.
Well, in relation to the comment that you made about understanding that there is a person, in the heart of this transaction, Beth and I say this to anybody that we refer you to, is Anne made us feel like family, during that home buying process. It really did. And when it's so important, especially being a first time home buyer, there's all sorts of nerves and, information that you're finding out for the first time. So it just made us that much more confident in our decision to go with certain houses that we decided to submit on. And the ones that we turned down, we knew that you were co-signing that as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just what house can we get, it still has to make sense. So
yeah,
I really appreciate your kind words, and I really wish that for all buyers. I hate hearing the horror stories. It's because horror stories in real estate are sometimes also very expensive stories.
yeah.
So I hate hearing that, but yeah, I really appreciate it. I do. I try very hard, and I want all the great, dedicated, smart, professional realtors out there to succeed. And I am qualifying that because I want the ones who deal with this industry with a level of seriousness to be the ones who, reap the rewards. It's not always that way, but I wish for that. So, and I want every client to be, feeling good about the process on the other end. And the process doesn't always lead to a sale. Maybe the decision is this isn't the time, and a realtor helped you get there, and you try again in a couple of years. So yeah.
So in the spirit of crazy stories, can you share with us the craziest thing you've ever seen when showing a home?
Wow, we had a weird one. And if you're snake phobic, you may want to turn the volume off right now. But I remember I sold a home. This was in Rockville. And my dad was helping me in real estate at the time. And it was a home I had shown and then written the contract on. And then he was there to meet the home inspector with the client. And I get a call, real urgent call from the listing agent, hey, are you at the house? Well, I'm not there, but remember my dad, whose license is doing the home inspection today with the client. Is he at the house? Yeah, he's at the house. Everything okay? Well, I haven't heard from them. I assume it's okay. Is something wrong? Well, yes, I think you need to call him. And I said, well, what, okay, what's going on? Well, there's a giant crate in the basement. And there's a humongous snake in it. I'm like, a humongous snake? And he said, yes, it has air holes at the top, and it's like a shipping crate because they were moving the snake. So he says, I want everyone to be careful. I don't want anyone to freak out. I want them to go near this crate. So call my dad. They're midway through the home inspection. Hey, Dad, where are you in the house right now? Oh, I'm in the basement. Dad, do you see a wooden crate by chance? Oh yeah, I think that's what I'm sitting on. So I was like, Dad, there's apparently a gigantic snake in that crate, and the listing agent just called because he wants us to be careful, and he doesn't want anybody to freak out or try to lift the lid. So anyway, Dad, being Dad, he had to find a way to like get his flashlight and peek through the holes. And yeah, sure enough, he said, "This is the biggest snake I've ever seen in captivity." So I said, "Well, that must be why the agent called." So I have a colleague I work with sometimes, Shirley, who if she sees a snake like this big in the garden, she's gone. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're there to see the property with her or not. She's history. So I'm sorry to those people who are snake phobic out there that I just told that story, but it was pretty funny.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Oh, right. Exactly. Thank you.
So what kind of snake was it?
Some kind of like giant python, I think.
Wow.
I think it was huge. I want to say the guy told me it was like, I mean, it was a double digit number. It wasn't like 6 or 7 feet. I don't remember. It was like 10 or 12. It was a humongous snake. It was a very large, I said. I didn't remember it from showing it, but there was a lot of stuff in that basement. And I don't know if it was there when I showed it. Usually people will get snakes out during showings. That's a tip. There's a tip for the day. If you have snakes, especially large ones, you might want to get them out for showings. Makes people feel nervous. Anyway, Colin, I see we're running a little long on time. So do you have any other questions for me?
I just had one last question.
Okay.
And it's has to do with the home buyer side. What are some of the more unique requests that you've received from those home buyers?
Oh, wow. Well, I haven't gotten weeping mortar yet, but I did get a guy who said I can only have black or stainless appliances. I have to have a house with no wallpaper. And I kept telling him these aren't searchable fields. I can search bedrooms, bathrooms, garage, but I can't search the absence or not of wallpaper. And so that was kind of an interesting one that, and I had a colleague, this wasn't me, but she had a really interesting one that she was helping somebody who had exotic birds, and they wanted to create an aviary in the center of the house. So they had to look for a particular style of house where they could do that and create like misters, which I thought was very interesting. Trying to think what else I've gotten. I had a guy one time who said that he wanted the kind of house that had been painted outside, but then the paint faded and you could see the bricks through it. And again, I was like, well, we can hand narrow that, but it's not a searchable field. They're very charming. I understand that, but not searchable. So I can't think if I've had anything like, I did have a crazy one. Jennifer and I crack up about this. We use it as an example all the time. I had a guy who had fired a realtor previously, been referred to me, and it was very, very important to him that any bathrooms had built-in toilet paper holders, but they couldn't be behind you. You couldn't have to reach even to your body or behind you. They had to be in front of you. And if a toilet paper holder wasn't built in, a freestanding toilet paper holder was not acceptable. That would rule the condo out. Now, I'm assuming he had joint problems and he had a good reason. It was just the way he presented it. That was very interesting. Anyway, I did not end out with his business, which was okay. I think I don't know, he must have interviewed several realtors about the toilet paper thing because it didn't end out working out. I did tell him I'd be happy to help him find one, but again, not a searchable field. So you're a little bit limited sometimes. And maybe that was not the answer he wanted. So yeah, that was an interesting one.
Yeah, I'd say, very pretty on placement. So anyway, well, that's all the questions that I had for you, Anne. Where do we go from here?
Here's where we go, Colin. I thank you because this was a lot of fun. And it wasn't that I did it because I thought it would be fun. I just thought several people had asked me to be the expert, and I thought it was a good idea. And I thought you would be really great to do an interview with. And I like you so much, and I wanted to promote your business. And since it wasn't house or home related, I thought, well, here's a way we could do it. And so I want to thank you for being here today and for the questions. It was a lot of fun. And I appreciate the testimonials you wove into it as well. And I would say anybody out there who needs the kind of services Colin provides, here's his contact information. And he's just fantastic at what he does. And he's conversant. Like if you're not sure if it would work for you, give him a buzz and he'll chat you through it. He's a good, honest guy and very ethical at what he does too. So I trust him wholeheartedly. And Colin, I'm so happy you were here today.
And thank you so much for having me. It really was my pleasure.
It was so much fun. So everybody, thank you for joining us, and come again next time for Ask the Expert. If you misplace Colin's information, you can get in touch with me and I can put you in touch with him, or we'll make this available again on my website, YouTube, Facebook, and Colin will also have it. So we hope you'll spread the news about KME.Digital, about me, if you know anybody thinking of buying or selling. And if you're somewhere else in the country, you need a good realtor, let me know. I'll help you find one. Don't keep us a secret. So I think a good realtor is worth a lot of money and can usually help you yield more money. So thank you for joining us today. We'll catch you again in a couple of weeks. Bye.
See ya.